Hey y'all, Michelle Raza here with Finding Yourself SATX Life Coaching, helping you find your best self since 2017. Today we're going to talk about continuing our communication series. We're going to talk about when we don't want to communicate. And this is out of a book called More Than Two, A Practical Guide to Ethical Polyamory by Franklin Veaux and Eve Rickert. Now, we've been covering Melody Beattie's Codependent No More, and we're on her chapter 17 on communication. But instead of covering that chapter, which I think covered it at a very high level, what I like to say, a mile wide and an inch deep, I want to dive into this other book, which really goes deep into communication. Before we get started, so today is October 15th, 2022. Wanted to congratulate Stefan Levine, this video's raffle winner, or from the last video. Stefan, please contact me. You can find my contact information on my website, www.findingyourselfsatx.com, to claim your free digital coaching package. And if you'd like to enter in this video's raffle, please do check out the details section of the video of how to enter. Okay, cool. Well, without further ado, I will go ahead and get started on when we don't want to communicate. Okay. Everything we've talked about so far assumes the people involved are trying to communicate with each other. We all grasp the value of communication intellectually, but turning that understanding into reality can be really hard because often we don't actually want to communicate. Communication is scary. We fear open communication when we fear the vulnerability that comes with it. Open communication means exposing yourself to rejection or judgment or trouble. It may mean finding out that what you assumed someone thinks and feels is wrong. It presents the possibility of hearing no to your deepest wishes. And it may mean having your needs or desires turned against you if your relationship with this person is unhealthy. There is no communication, at least not meaningful communication, without vulnerability. Communication can be hard when it leads to embarrassment or shame. If you were brought up to believe that there are certain things that you just don't talk about, then shame can interfere with communication. And you might end up wondering something like, why is my sex life so unsatisfying? And being afraid to hear the answer. Almost always, communication tends to be most difficult precisely when it's most important. As the relationship coach Maria, Bigzinski has put it, if you're afraid to say it, that means you need to say it. When we are feeling most raw, most vulnerable, most scared of opening up, those are the times we most need to open up. We can't expect others to respect our boundaries and limits if we don't talk about them, or worse, pretend they don't exist. It's a bit of a paradox that even as open communication makes us feel vulnerable and exposed, it's essential if we are to protect our boundaries from being violated. We can't expect others to respect our boundaries if we pretend they don't exist. We've been asked whether talking about everything takes some of the mystery out of a relationship. We find that question surprising. We are all, every one of us, complicated and dynamic and always changing. And relationship dynamics are filled with mystery as it is. There's no need to invent more. There is easily enough mystery between two people to fill many lifetimes, even when they're both paying very close attention and are as honest and transparent with each other as it is possible to be. Relationships based on honesty and transparency, in which the people really pay attention to each other and work to see and understand each other, are more subtle and profoundly complex than relationships that avoid this kind of honesty and knowledge. The more you get to know a person, the more you find out that there is to know. And we're all moving targets. We change every day. There will always be new things to learn, no matter how much we communicate. So not sure if you've seen the previous videos that I did on this. The first one on communication was passive communication. So that's where you state your needs indirectly, or worse, don't state them at all. Expect someone to read your mind and then you're upset when they don't. So these are the pitfalls of communication, things that you don't want to do. The next one was triangular communication. So that's where you talk to someone about someone else, but not talking to the person that you have a problem with about that problem. That's another pitfall of communication that we really want to avoid. So lesson learned there is talk to the person. It's awkward and weird and difficult, but that's what you have to do to really come out ahead in that relationship. And then today, just when we don't want to communicate. So yeah, I mean, shame is a real thing, right? And it doesn't just have to be shame about sex. I mean, it can just be shame about your feelings. A lot of us were raised in such a way that, it's this thing called toxic positivity, good vibes only. Well, that's not real, because all of us have a wide range of emotions. And so if we're taught that we can't really talk about our negative emotions and you kind of just fume until they're gone, then it may be very hard for you to communicate about the very things that you most need to communicate about when you are feeling a particular way about something, or you don't feel so great about something. So Franklin and Eve, they're writing about polyamorous relationships. So there's nothing deeper than a romantic relationship, and then multiplying that by multiple partners, right? You just add more layers of complexity. But all of us have multiple relationships that we juggle all day, every day. One of the biggest conflicts that Gottman talks about. So Gottman talks about persistent conflicts and then solvable conflicts. And he says 69% of relationship issues are persistent conflicts that are just going to keep coming up. And you have to figure out whether you can live with it with that person or not, because in essence, you're always going to have that conflict. And one of those is conflicts about in-laws. And it's very common, especially for the male, the man in the relationship, when it's a man-woman relationship, the man always feels like he's stuck between his mom and his woman. And I mean, Gottman says this, right? It's something that's very common. And that type of communication of having to juggle both people's needs, Eve and Franklin talk about it in their book. They're talking about juggling two partners and you being the pivot partner, but take sex out of the equation. And that's exactly what happens when you love your mom and you want her to be happy. You love your wife and you want her to be happy, and you're always stuck in the middle. And what happens? The mom and the wife hate each other. They hate each other because you're always stuck in the middle and you can't fulfill both of their needs. So what it falls to actually, as the pivot partner of this relationship, you're the thing that they have in common. It is up to you to ensure, you as the man, to ensure that your mom is happy and has her needs met, and your wife is happy and has her needs met. And that's very, very difficult. And Gottman says that this is one of the common conflicts, right, that couples have to deal with. At the end of the day, Gottman's advice is that your romantic relationship, or in the case of Eve and Franklin, your primary partnership, has to come first. Your romantic relationship is the family that you're trying to build, your new family. And so that conflict is best put to bed by making it clear to the secondary partner, or your mom, if it's, the in-law type discussion, that the primary partner or your wife comes first. This is my family. This is who I'm building with. So it's really complex stuff. All of us are juggling this type of thing. We also have bosses, co-workers, children, neighbors. All of us are always juggling multiple relationships. So unless your relationships are very shallow, right? You just talk about the weather, or, is it garbage day or whatever. But most of us have multiple relationships that we're trying to talk through and work with or be in. And communication is key. So again, it's exactly when you don't want to communicate, when you feel most awkward about it, that you need to say something. And that's how you move forward in the relationship. Now, if this is someone that you want to cut off and not have a relationship with, then, maybe you don't address it. You have to pick your battles too. But Franklin and Eve are saying communicate, communicate, communicate. Don't communicate passively. Don't communicate in a triangular method. Talk to that person and talk to them when you really feel like so embarrassed and nervous and all these things. That's exactly when you need to talk to them. So thanks for spending time with me today. Please enter our raffle. Super excited to give away another one of my digital coaching packages. And check out my website. It's at www.findingyourselfsatx.com. If you haven't hit that like and subscribe button, please do. It really does help us little YouTubers. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video in a couple weeks. All right, take care.